Hey, it's Talia here, and today on I Got Back Up, I am joined by Jonathan Hirons. So, how do we start again? At age 69, Jonathan had a stroke at work, which was followed by complications. This complication was aphasia, a language disorder affecting the production or comprehension of speech and the ability to read or write due to a brain injury. At age 69, Jonathan was now learning how to talk and read all over again. So, Jonathan, when you hear the phrase "I got back up," what do you think?
Well, I'm thinking about somebody's had a problem that they've had to deal with, and eventually they've got over it and they've come back to or are getting back to where they were.
Yeah, 100%. It's getting back or still coming through it in your own individual ways. So
Yeah.
you have come back in your own ways from something that you've been through as well. And so the floor is over to you, kind of to start wherever most resonates with your story.
Right.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. So it started when I was working. I was in a project in Europe, and I went for a pre-meeting in London with some other people, and I started to feel a bit strange, and I went out for lunch with to meet to another client, and when I came back from lunch, we started working again, and somebody said to me, can you change something on that page that document that we're working on?" And I couldn't. I mean, nothing worked. I looked down and I I couldn't make any sense of what was on the page, and I said, I really do feel odd. Anyway, long story short, I ended up in hospital, and I had a bleed on my brain, and when I had a CT scan, and they said, well, the bleed is on your brain, and we've got a problem with the broca area in your brain. Now, the broca's area or the broca area is this affects language. So in different ways, people who have that problem, as I have, you have problems with your speech and with your in my case with writing and so on and so forth. So obviously everything stopped. My work stopped almost immediately because obviously I couldn't continue. Most of my work was to dealing with people and doing presentations and so on and so forth. I couldn't do that. So it was taken away from me, basically. And so what I did, I was obviously sent. I was in the it was in a hospital for about 5 days or something while they sort of sorted me out with it was my blood pressure and so on. Anyway, so I got home uh, and thought, well, what do we do now? So my wife and his work is in psychology. So she's um, she's familiar with psychology, and so she said, well, what I understand is that you have to get going as quickly as possible to do um, to get going, because you get a kind of window of about 2 or 3 months where you can make good progress. So we obviously we were in touch with the NHS, and uh, they said, well, we can get you some speech therapy, but it's going to be 6 weeks before you can start. So Anne went off and said, well, what you need to do is get back into speaking. So she bought some kids flashcards with it's got cat, dog, elephant, whatever, and I had to obviously try and come back with the word. So we started doing that, and every day we were doing that. And she said, also we're trying to get your writing going and get my writing going. So if I tried to write something, it looked like a child's writing. Actually, my writing disappeared, and also I couldn't remember things like uh, uh, my address, my telephone number, all that sort of thing, all the sort of basics that you've got, in your life. So I had it all written down on a piece of paper, so that if anybody says, what's your name, or what I knew my name, what's your address or whatever, I had it all written down. So I had to walk around with my it was my business card with all my stuff on the back. So we made a start, and uh, it sort of it gradually um, improved, uh, and then obviously I had the speech therapy, which took about they only gave me, I say only, I was given about I think it was 6 weeks so that I come every week, and they would go through um, getting back to understanding words and so on and so forth. So in the first, I guess, I suppose it's about 9 months, I was in this sort of halfway place. Sometimes I could speak, sometimes I couldn't speak, sometimes I could write, sometimes I didn't, and so on and so forth. So it went round and round, but gradually it sort of got better. But it still, as you can probably tell, I still have problems um, picking up words. So words still elude me. They're all in my head. It's a strange thing with aphasia. Is is uh, Everything's in my head perfectly. It's when I try and get it out, in the open air, it doesn't always work. Um, so um, alongside all that, I found out more about aphasia, because I'd never heard about it, and had never heard about it. Most people still haven't heard about it. So I found a um, a group in near me in Exeter, and I went along and to see what it was all about. And I met this the lady that runs it, called Barbara, and she said, "Oh, come, you can come along anytime, and join the group, you see." And so I seeing all these people, I realized that I probably was quite high up in all of this. My is, I can speak, and I can speak to you. A lot of people can't even speak, or hardly speak. And I thought, this is crazy. And there was probably, I don't know, a dozen, 2 dozen people there from the area, and they used to turn up, and she'd run a sort of kind of drop-in group, and people just get together and chat and have a cup of tea and all that sort of thing. It was great. So, and it struck me at the time that this is nobody knows about this. This is there are people there who've had their lives basically turned upside down, and there's Barbara doing her bit, but basically there's nothing else going on. I didn't have any other support. I mean, fortunately, my wife was kind of, knew about, was able to grasp what the problem was, and help me out, help me along. But I wondered whether everybody, if I wondered if uh, um, other people didn't have had the same luck, as it were. And I think it was luck in the sense that I had somebody who could help me through all this. But I wondered if other people didn't. So I thought, when I was talking to Barbara one day, I thought, well, why don't I make a little film about people's experience? Um, And so I started off by doing just little kind of shorts about her and what she was doing. And then it suddenly came to me that really what I ought to do is a longer version, as a kind of documentary about what happens to people and the different problems that everybody says. I think it is worth remembering that everybody has a different so just because it's called aphasia, it's not one thing, it's many things. And some people have different problems. Some people can't, like I have problems with language. Some people will speak normally, you know, but it's complete nonsense. So they'll sound as though they will act and sound as though they're talking naturally, but the words that are coming out are nonsense.
So
So it's
their brain like knows
exactly,
the words, but then their speech doesn't say them correctly.
exactly, yeah. So the brain's it's been it's not it's been rewired, as it were, so they can't actually connect their feelings or their thoughts with language. So anyway, all this came together, and I was doing the research when I was talking to Barbara about it, and so on and so forth. So I set off by making this documentary. Well, I didn't have any money, so I thought I'll go and find out some get some funding for this. So originally I went to the Tavistock and kind of told them my story, and they said, well, we can give you some money. We'll give you a little bit of money to get going. So they gave me a little bit of money, which wasn't quite enough to do the whole film. So then I did a Kickstarter,
Mhm.
and I raised some more money on my own sort of my own back, as it were. And so I got enough money together just to do the film. So because I had to get some people to do I had to pay some people. I paid someone to write the script because obviously I couldn't write the script, so I had to get someone to write the script. Uh, had an editor to do that. I had someone to do the filming, to help me with the filming, and so on and so forth. Anyway, so and a guy did uh, a a little story about aphasia, in graphics. So he's a graphics designer. So I had to pay him. So anyway, it all got done eventually, and I think it took me about 18 months to get it finished and then edited and out.
Mhm.
And then from then on, I've been along the way. So I've got somebody to do my PR.
Mhm.
So she's been with me most of the time, actually. And so every month she's doing some work on the socials. So we've got the usual socials. So she does something every month, every week actually, about what we're doing. So we push the film. I'm now doing a podcast. Just we're starting on that as well. And I'm just doing this is just awareness, really. This is all I can do. Uh, to try and help other people understand what the problem is.
Yeah, and I mean, first of all, let me say it's amazing how much you're doing already, and then moving forward to spread awareness and to help more people understand. And if there are people, out there in the world going through it, hopefully they will find what you're doing, whether it's the film, whether it's the podcast that you're hoping to do. So just wanted to say that it's amazing that you're doing that. But also, you're right, because I don't think many people do know what aphasia is.
No,
I don't think it's something that's talked about a lot or heard about a lot. How old were you when it happened?
I was 69 when it happened.
And I
So
guess that's the thing, isn't it? You never thought at 69, 70 years old, you were going to have to, when
right,
we all learned how to read and write and talk, we were, very, very small. Obviously some of us in different ways, but a lot of us were very small. And I guess you never kind of imagined that was ever going to happen, of
have to go
course.
back together. Yeah, yeah, to go
Yeah.
back to it again. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was it is a very strange experience, I have to say. and sometimes it still is
Yeah.
because I think I said to you when we were talking the other day, towards the end of the day, as I get more tired, um, my words get worse, as it were, or I lose more words. I'm okay at this time of day because I'm fresh, as it were. But yeah, yes. So yeah, yes. To come back at this at my sort of age, as it were, it's yeah, it was a bit of a shock, to
Yeah.
say the
Yeah.
least.
I mean,
Uh,
it'd be a shock for anyone at any age, I
of
think.
course,
Of any
and
age.
I think that in the film, I didn't want to talk about older people, should we say. Obviously, it does affect because it's stroke related.
Mhm.
So it's a stroke tends to be an older person is more likely to get a stroke than a younger person. But I found three young people who'd had strokes for different reasons and had aphasia,
Mhm.
and they're in the film because I thought it was important for people to understand it's not just an old person's thing, as it were.
Mhm.
It's something you get when you're, in your later years. It can happen to anybody,
Mhm.
and that's why I picked the two people. Well, there's particularly two one girl who's 22 when she had a stroke, um, and she's slightly worse than me. She can't read. She's not able to read at all. Some people mainly she does use obviously uses a phone to communicate to do. She writes using a phone, but she can't read
Yeah. So for
much.
anybody that doesn't so anybody that doesn't kind of 100% know about aphasia, is it do you is it something that happens on its own, or is it always followed on from a stroke?
It follows on from a stroke. It's about a third of people who have a stroke have
Okay.
some form of aphasia.
Okay.
I mean, there are complications with strokes anyway, as you probably know,
Mhm.
and aphasia is only a complication that comes with everything else. So I haven't lost any mobility. So I from day one, I could always walk properly, but I have a friend. I play football, would you believe, still, and the guy I used to play football had a massive stroke, and he's had the worst sort. He's lost one side of his body and so on and so forth, and his speech has gone and so on. So a lot of people worse than me,
Mm. Yeah.
but yeah. Sorry, I've lost the thread there slightly. Oh yeah, so young people, you must remember that it's not just an older person's thing. It can happen to anybody for any reason.
Mhm.
And one of the other guys in the film was hit by a cyclist. He was walking across the road and was hit by a cyclist, banged his head, and that's where it started. So he had a brain injury, and of course he had. That's why he's got aphasia now.
Okay. So when you were admitted into hospital then that day when you said at work you
Yeah,
couldn't understand what was going on in the paper or the computer it might have been, were you having a stroke that day?
yeah. It was on. That was everything started to go very strange.
Yeah.
In my head. Uh, Physically, I was feeling a bit uh, sort of all over the place. I
Mhm.
didn't really know what was going on. But yes, apparently it happened and stopped. The reason why it's not been so bad for me is because it was very quick.
Okay.
So the bleed apparently was stopped by the time they got to hospital. So
Okay.
they'd realised that it had happened, and when they'd done the CT scan, they could see that it had been and gone, as it were.
Okay.
So I was lucky in that way because if it had carried on, of course, you start losing other parts of your brain as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah,
So I want to ask them with regards to having to learn to, to talk and to read and to write again. And like you were saying, you have the words inside your mind. You just can't always get it out.
Yeah.
How is that then? I mean, I know the words are in your mind, but how is that then mentally for you? How, I mean, because obviously it's going to be difficult, and you said you still struggle with it sometimes, but when you had to go through it at the beginning, when you were told what was going on and you were going to have to
Yeah.
relearn,
Yeah.
relearn speech again, and even now, how has that process been for you mentally?
Well, it's frustrating.
Mm.
That's the main thing, because I know what I want to say, and as I've just said, it doesn't come out. And a good example, really, and this is one of the most frustrating things. If I'm in a group of people and we're having a kind of chit chat and a bit of a laugh, I can't keep up because I can't think fast enough, or sorry, I can't get out fast. I can hear it's in my head, so I can, I can have, oh, I want to say this, but it doesn't come out quick enough, or at all,
Yeah.
whatever, whatever happens. So that is frustrating actually. One on one, as I speak to you or I speak to anybody, it's not so much of a problem.
Yeah.
I just I falter sometimes, but it's most people don't even notice. You know, um, but obviously I notice because I know that I'm not speaking as fluently as I would normally do, as I used to, should we say?
Yeah.
Um,
It's
yeah,
interesting because it's one of those things where I think anybody that might be listening now and that may not be going through obviously what you are, but going through something else, what you were just talking about, it's actually really relatable because it's one of those things where when you were saying you might, anyone else might not notice it, but you do. And that
yeah,
can go with a lot of different things in what people are going through and humans are going through in their lives. A lot of the time, other people don't notice whatever it might be that we're worried about or that we are going through, but other people don't notice it, but we do. So we
yeah,
obviously we do because we know what we're going through. But then we get so maybe insecure or aware or in our own heads that the other people we're talking to can pinpoint exactly what it is there and then. But I'd actually say a lot of the time, the other people have no idea. No idea unless you tell them. A lot of the people have no idea what it is. And I think that's really relatable because even if we throw in something like anxiety, someone could be having a
yeah,
conversation with somebody and they could think, wow, they can pick up on my anxiety, they can pick up on my anxious cues or my anxious habits or my anxious behaviors, when realistically that other person might have absolutely no idea and might just be having a conversation
yeah,
completely unaware. But the person going through it then gets in their head, they get more insecure. And I just it's something I've noticed a lot more recently, and the more people I talk to, also my friends as well, other people don't necessarily notice the things that we're
yeah,
worried about.
yeah, yeah. It's true. Yeah, it's easy to. Well, I've there's a another good example is if I go into a shop
Mhm.
and and I want to go, shop round the corner and I want to ask a question. I find I get into a bit of a state over it,
Mhm.
even now, and I used to, I still do, I rehearse what I'm going to say, but sometimes it doesn't come out that way, and sometimes it does. But most people say, after I've told them what my problem is, they say, well, I wouldn't know. So you've put you've got it absolutely right. Um, it's all in your head really a lot of the time, and people just don't either don't care, don't know, whatever. Well, I don't know whatever it is, but they don't, and they're just and you're the problem is with you rather than with them. I think is what you're trying to say, isn't it? Really? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is actually. And it's not even that it's the problem is you. It's just as humans, we get into our own heads a lot
Yeah,
more.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And a lot more than we need to.
yeah.
Then obviously, I just want to ask then, are there things in your life that you have had to maybe stop because of obviously aphasia?
Well, I think yes, because well, my work was uh, I was a project manager, I suppose is the easiest way of putting it. But it was quite. I used to do lots of things, it's got a part of it is doing presentations. I cannot do that. It's beyond me. You couldn't give me even 2 sentences to actually write to speak, because I'd run into all sorts of trouble with it. And that's the thing that I can't do. So I can't really public speaking. I know most people hate doing it. I used to really enjoy it, but and I'm sure you do as well. But so it was one of the things I used to like to do. To get stand up and tell people whatever they need to be told. But I can't do that now. I could do it off the cuff as we are now,
Mhm.
maybe. But if it was at all scripted, no, complete. I wouldn't even get going on it.
Do you find,
Strange thing.
yeah, no, of course. Do you find that hard then that you can't do it anymore, or is it something you've kind of accepted and gone, it's okay because I can do these other things in my life now?
Well, yeah, I think that's true. You sort of work around it.
Mhm.
I mean, I find that the podcast, just going back to that, I've got one of my oldest friends is helping me out, and he's doing the heavy lifting. So he's going to do all this, the intros and the outros and all that, because he's an actor as well. So I mean, he's used to doing it, and also he's good at it, of course. But so I get him to do that. So he and I have the discussion that we're having now, and I can do that. But if you asked me to write to do the intro, I couldn't do it, and it was written down. I couldn't do it.
Okay. Can
So
you
you
do
just work around it.
yeah, yeah, of course. Can you do my intros and outros?
For a fee.
But you do, I guess, again, that's what's relatable to anyone else on their journeys is you might not want to have to work around it because it might be something that you do love and you never want to give
Yes,
up. But
of course.
if you have to work around it, there are, a lot of people I've spoken to on the show, and in my own life, I started to learn is, there are, you can try something 100 times. So even if you're working around something, you can try something 100 times and it might not work 100 times. And so you might think at the 100th time, I'm going to give up now because this thing isn't working. I can't work around this. Or I can't accept
Yeah,
it. But that's why you shouldn't give up, because on that 101 time might be the time when everything changes and
yeah,
the thing works, or the thing you
yeah,
figure
yeah,
it out.
yeah. I agree. Yeah, it's I think obviously it's to do with your personality as well. What you can actually, if you can do that. Some people would give up because that's the way they are.
Mm.
But and like you, I suspect, I don't give up. Basically, I just carry on
Mhm.
until it happens. So it's like, if people say no to you, you ask, you do. It's a bit like sales. The people say no, I'm not interested. But eventually, that somebody will say yes, won't they? And that's how it works, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really?
Someone
Yeah.
will eventually say yes, or you might hear no. You might read, understand the word
Yeah.
no, but you might not be like, but there might be a maybe still.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't completely let go.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Don't
Yeah.
completely let go.
Yeah.
So then I just want to ask them before we do wrap up. I want to ask, what advice would you give to somebody that is in the very early stages of aphasia? They're at the stage maybe where right at the very beginning, and they are maybe wanting to just give up and they don't want to, like you said, everyone has a very different, approach, and sorry, not approach, but everyone has a very different, can have very different circumstances. But what would you say to someone that is in the early stages?
Well, I think just what we've just been saying is don't give up, and try and get as much help as you can, whether it's from somebody at home or outside or whatever, or go to groups. I mean, the the, the aphasia group is a lifeline to lots of people. As I say, I'm lucky in the sense that I've got a partner who will, uh, will go with me, as it were. But not everybody. Some people live on their own, of course. And so what do they do then? So I think get as much help as possible and don't give up. There you go.
Yeah. I mean, don't give up is easier said than done, but I think it's something that, and a lot of people think it's quite cliche, but I love it. And I think that the more times you hear just don't give up, I do think it
Yeah.
starts to resonate with people.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So where can people watch the film? And then hopefully you'll start the podcast soon. But where can people watch the film if they want to?
Right. Well, if you go onto the website
Mhm.
is tipofmytonguefilm.com.
Mhm.
Um, the film is on the website. It's free to watch. And there's a few other things there, and where people can go for more help with aphasia as well. The podcast is coming along. That'll have a similar kind of feel about it. But I'm going to talk about to different people
Mhm.
about all the things that we've been talking about, and how, and hopefully that will help people find places to go. And especially if they're, as you say, at the beginning of their journey, you don't know, you've got to go looking. Unfortunately, fortunately, we have the internet, which does help.
Exactly, exactly. When
I don't know how. I don't know how we could have done it without it. I mean, seriously, it would be very hard if you just had to go to the library or something to
yeah,
find out. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So I think we are lucky.
Yeah, I mean that is the greatest thing with technology when it works. It
Yeah.
is
And it does here, doesn't it?
when it works, it
It
is, it is one of the greatest things, and that's the thing.
is.
The message, please God, will could reach people at the other side of the world that
Exactly.
without the internet you would never have been able to reach.
No, no.
Yeah,
And we couldn't even have this discussion,
no,
I guess.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So
It's a
is there
wonderful thing.
is there anything else that you'd like to share then?
No, I think I'm done here. No, no. All I want to say is, obviously, please have a look at my website, because it's got a lot about aphasia on there. The film, is not too long, so it's a 15-minute watch. So it's and the podcast is coming along. It's on its. We've done number one.
Okay.
We're just testing the market with it, but yeah, it'll be on in the next few weeks, I guess, and there's more to come.
Amazing, amazing,
Fantastic.
amazing. And just one more thing before we do wrap up. How are you doing now?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, I'm doing. This is keeping me busy. I could tell you something, and you know about this.
Yes.
As every day, I'm having to do something about something aphasia related, should we
Mhm.
say? And I'm fine. I'm very good.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. Well, thank you
Yeah.
very much for joining me.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much.
One of the key messages from today's episode is the emphasis on never giving up. I know that is a lot easier said than done, but think about all the times in the past you nearly gave up and you didn't. You made it through. This time might be a very different story. It might be tougher and darker and more of a struggle than ever before. But there really is beauty in a sunrise once you have sat and experienced the darkness. So until next time, remember, you have the power inside you. We all do. You have the power to get back up.